Hey, hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and today I'm reviewing the Mercedes AMG GLB35 and sharing all of its details, along with some of my thoughts on the interior, exterior, and also taking it for a quick drive. So let's get started with this review of the Mercedes AMG GLB35. Alright, so let's get started with the review by first thanking Keys Mercedes for allowing me to review this beautiful AMG GLA35 today. If you happen to be interested in this car or any other new or pre-owned Mercedes product, make sure you give them a call. I've left their information in the description below. Now let's get started by first covering the GLB model and its pricing. So the GLB35 is the most economical entry into an AMG SUV, and its pricing starts at just under $50,000. And considering that it's got an AMG badge and has the practicality of an SUV with a souped up turbo engine, it's a pretty decent deal. Alright, so now let's talk about the looks in the GLB35, and I actually think it's a pretty cool looking thing. I can't believe I'm saying this about an SUV, but nonetheless, it's got an AMG front bumper with fake front vents, so shame on you AMG. But to make up for it, it does have the Pan America grille. Out the side, I don't like the black cladding. I saw this in the GLA45. I didn't like it there. I don't like it here. Then out the back, it's got these pretty cool looking dual exit exhaust pipes that give it a sporty look. Overall, the shape of the GLB is pretty intriguing. From certain angles, it looks like a traditional SUV, and from others, somewhat boxy and lower to the ground than what you would expect an SUV to be. Maybe that's why I think it looks pretty cool. Alright, so now let's talk about the engine details in the GLA35, and it's a familiar 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine making 302 horsepower and 295 pounds-feet of torque. It's mated to an 8-speed double-clutch automatic transmission, and it's putting power down to all 4 wheels via the Mercedes AMG 4MATIC Performance all-wheel drive system. Now, I mentioned all-wheel drive system. This thing has the ability to switch 100% of the power to the front wheels, but is only capped at 50% to the rear wheels. So at best, you're going to get 50-50 power distribution in the GLB35. It does not have the ability to send all the power to the rear wheels. You will not be able to get a rear wheel drive quote-unquote configuration in the GLB35. Now it is an SUV, so it's got some weight to it, 3,869 pounds, and all of this translates to a 0 to 60 time of 5.1 seconds. Fuel economy is rated at 20 in the city, 27 in the highway, for a combined average of 22. Now I'll give you some more details about the characteristics and the feel of this engine during the driving portion of the review, but because it has an AMG badge, it comes with the AMG Performance exhaust. So let me take you around back so you can take a listen to what this thing sounds like. Alright, so now let's talk about these really cool 21-inch wheels, and they're connected to an AMG ride control suspension with adaptive dampers that gives you the ability to either turn up or turn down the firmness of your ride based on your driving conditions. And these wheels, so they're 21 inches on all 4 corners. They're the most expensive wheels that you can get on a GLB35. They're $2,250, but I think they look very cool and proportional to the size of the GLB. Now the tires that wrap them are Continental Sport Contacts, 255 on all 4 corners. Inside the wheel barrel, you have 13.8-inch discs being bitten onto by a 4-piston silver-painted AMG caliper, and in the rear, 13-inch rotor with a single floating piston. So now that we've briefly touched over the mechanical componentry, let's switch gears and talk some practicality by talking about the trunk and then moving to the interior. So the practicality topic in the GLB35, starting off with cargo space. So the way you open the trunk or this back hatch, there's a button on the interior, there's a button on the key, and so long as you have the key with you, there's comfort access right here on top of the license plate. So once you open this thing, and it's very convenient because it's electronic opening and closing, you are greeted with a really nice amount of space. So because the GLB 35 is built on a GLB platform, you get all of the benefits that you would get in a regular GLB, and that equates to 62 cubic feet of space in the back of this GLB. Now, you do have the ability to fold down the rear seats, and that's really the way you get to the 62 cubic feet of space when everything is laid down flat. But I can tell you that even with the seats in the upright position, there's plenty of space back here in the GLB 35. I could see you fitting 2 larger pieces of traveling equipment, suitcases with you, and if you want to stack things and maybe impair some of your backward visibility, you can certainly do that as well. There's plenty of room here. Now, this car does not have the optional 3rd row seat, so I can't give you a perspective on that. But without it, I can tell you that there is plenty of storage room in this GLB. Closing the trunk, it's electronic, as I mentioned, push of a button here, and it will just automatically close on your behalf without you putting in any effort. So, with the trunk out of the way, now let's jump onto the interior and I'll talk to you about what it's like in there. Alright, so now the interior of the GLB 35, starting off with the quality. And there's some really nice quality pieces in the high touch points of the GLB. For example, on the door, the upper portion is nicely padded with a leather top covering here and some carbon fiber and Alcantara and red stitching. So that works really nicely together. But the rest of it is just hard plastic, and so is the lower portion of the dash, and this area here in the center compartment and around the center compartment is all plastic. This area where your wrist rests is actually plastic as well. I wish they would have put a little bit more cushion here in this area. So these are examples of really nice quality and some really maybe economy quality, something that maybe were carried over from the GLB, the base level GLB, but hey, you got to give somewhere because this has an AMG badge on it with more performance parts, and those performance parts are usually expensive, so you can't really make everything higher quality. But overall, the design of the interior is actually very cool as well, very simple and very modern at the same time. The air conditioning vents are always very cool with the ambient lighting. They have a nice feel to them when you're moving them around. The steering wheel is the optional AMG wheel. It's Alcantara, so it might look beat up if you're going to lease this car maybe towards the end of the lease. It does have the little cool AMG controllers. And the thing that I like a lot is that Mercedes has put metal pieces for the climate control system. I don't like it when they're plastic, and I'm glad to see that even in the GLB 35, they are metal pieces. Now the rest of it is really nice. Just the overall vibe of the interior, the design is very, very cool. Now let's switch over into comfort and the overall size. So the comfort in this seat is actually really nice. The seats are nicely cushioned. It does have lumbar support and a manual thigh extension. Heated and cool seats are optional. This example I have today does have the optional heated seat, but the overall comfort, as I said, is really good, and it doesn't have side bolsters, so even as I'm sitting here, I'm kind of I have the ability to kind of move around and wobble around, so it's not the most aggressive seat like hold you in. It's more tailored for daily driving and just overall comfort. And then switching on over into the overall space, I don't feel like I'm sitting too close here. I do have like my own area here as a driver, and I sat in the passenger seat and it feels comfortable there as well. So decent space in the front. This is actually a really nice size for a compact SUV. So now let's switch on over into technology. So you have two 10.25 inch screens. They're the same screen. One acts as your gauge cluster. It's got a really nice horizontal speedometer and tachometer and a little digital readout of a analog tachometer here in the center. Really cool, nice graphics in the super sport or the sport setting of the gauge cluster. And it gives you a really nice amount of information right here in front of you in the gauge cluster, so you don't have to look around for it. Now, moving on over into the infotainment system. Physical characteristics of it, it is touchscreen. It reacts very nicely to your fingertips. The responsiveness is very good as well. The MBUX system as a software, if you watch some of my other reviews, I like MBUX a lot, and it's no different here. This is the latest version of MBUX. It does have really easy navigation, and the learning curve is simple because everything is just laid out right in front of you. Everything is just a simple widget. media, comfort, performance, navigation, radio, everything is just really simply laid out. So it's very easy to use MBUX. But if you didn't like MBUX or you just preferred Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, this system does have that covered as well. Now, some of the other amenities as far as charging goes. So you have two USB Type-C outlets in the front. One is right here on top of the cup holders and another one here in the center compartment. You've got two additional ones in the back with a 15-volt outlet. So you have 5 combined charging capabilities or charging outlets in the GLB. And then one ridiculous thing about the GLB is the fact that it does not have keyless entry as standard. So you can get in and turn the car on with leaving the key in your pocket. You don't have to put it in the ignition and turn it, but you have to take the key out of your pocket just to get in to your $50,000 AMG GLB. So considering the badges that are on this car and the price point, I'm really disappointed, and it's actually ridiculous that you have to pay extra to get a keyless entry system for your GLB. Come on, Mercedes, you gotta put it in as standard. Most economy cars have keyless entry and go. So 2 final things. This car does have the optional panoramic roof, which is always nice for the front area. It makes it seem a little bit more airy, and for the back passengers is something cool to look out of. And the storage is actually really nice as well. The door pockets are really nice and tall. You have 2 options for center compartments. You have one up here above the cup holders and one here as a center compartment. This center compartment is actually very, very deep. You can fit a bunch of stuff in here. So that's basically it on the front. All right, so now the driving portion of the review, and as always, this is what the key looks like. It's the most recent or more modern Mercedes keys. The only difference is in the lower end AMG models, it's an all plastic key. In some of the more expensive AMG models, it's an all metal key. Anyway, that's the difference. Nonetheless, it's actually a pretty cool looking key. I give Mercedes kudos for their key design. Now, as far as visibility goes, out the front is great, out the sides is also great, out the back is good. This has great safety features baked in as standard. The 360-degree camera is great, the front camera, the rear camera. When you're moving, it's just really nicely done, so no visibility issues. You also have blind spot monitoring in this car. And then as far as the price goes, so $49,990 something, just a hair under $50,000. But this car has about $12,000 in options and has a sticker price of roughly 61 and high change, so basically almost $62,000. So now let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go for a quick drive. Start stop button right here. It turns on. It's actually a very docile exhaust, sounds very quiet in comfort mode and when you're starting up. So seatbelt on. Actually, it's very hot in SoCal recently, so air conditioning also on. And let's go for a drive. So starting out in comfort mode, these cars pass, and let's go for it. So immediately when you come and sit in this thing in comfort mode, it's not the most cushioniest car. It feels sporty. It doesn't feel like super comfortable, or not comfortable is not the right word. It doesn't feel super cushiony, and I'll get it to that as I'm talking about the suspension and the steering. But what I'm gonna do, go ahead and put it in Sport Plus mode and see what this thing's got. Pretty good, not bad, not bad. Brakes are also good. I'm gonna put it in manual shift mode. Oh, I'm messing it up. I need to put it into Sport Plus. Okay, I'm in Sport Plus again. And let's make a quick turn here. Downshift to first. Let's see what it's got again. Decent amount of power, pretty good. The exhaust note is fun, I'll put it that way. And the turbos kick in right around, or the turbo is a single turbo, kicks in right around 4,000 RPM, and that's where you get the initial thrust. And so the fun this is not a particularly fast car, okay? It's quick, I'll call it that. That's the best way to put it. It's a quick car. The thing that's cool about it is the power delivery. So you can hear the blow-off valve and the turbo spooling up and really pulling you forward. The exhaust note on the upshift has a decent amount of pop and gives you a really nice experience as you're driving. So the dynamics of it are fun. Is it fast? No, it's quick. Overall, is it fun? Yes, it's definitely fun. Now, some of the other things. So the brake is actually really good as well. Decent amount of bite, adequate for the amount of power this car has. Now the transmission is actually very good as well. Whether you're upshifting, downshifting using the paddles, or it's doing it on its own, it's very smooth, very crisp. It's a nice transmission. The cool thing I like about it, again, that cool word seems to be the theme for this car, is that on downshifts, it does a really cool rev match, and it enhances that driving experience I was just talking about. Now, some of the surprising things, and I briefly hinted on this earlier, is the suspension and the steering. So I'll start off with the suspension. I was really expecting this car to be a comfortable, like a daily driver, super comfortable car to drive with some slight hints of sportiness because of the AMG badge. But what I'm feeling here is that this car is properly sporty. This isn't the most comfortable riding car. It's not the cushioniest car. So if that's what you're looking for, look at the base GLB. Do not get this GLB35 unless you're really expecting certain levels of sportiness. Now, one of the other things that's surprising is the steering and how much weight there is in the steering. This is a properly weighted wheel. There's a decent amount of weight in this thing and a decent amount of feel. When you're in comfort mode, let alone in sport and sport plus, those latter settings or drive modes really make this thing artificially heavy and borderline, for me, intolerable. I would basically never go into sport and sport plus mode because of the extra weight in the steering wheel, and I would just use individual mode, put everything else in fast mode, and leave the steering in comfort, because that's where it's at its best, to be honest. So that's pretty much it for driving dynamics. Overall, I think for $50,000 or $60,000, depending on what type of options you get, this is actually a very intriguing package, because it's got a hot engine. It almost feels like a go-kart and an SUV with the steering and then the turbo, the delivery, the experience that I was talking about earlier with the sounds. And then you've got the additional practicality built in with the SUV. You got a lot of space in the back seat. I was surprised by how much legroom there is back there. And then the cargo space, 62 cubic feet of space when you fold down the seats. And if you want to sacrifice that a little bit, you could even get a third row in your GLB35 and carry around 7 people in this car. It's really amazing. So it's definitely an interesting package because of the sportiness and the practicality of the SUV that you'll get in this car. So that's pretty much it. If you've got any other questions, I'm sure I didn't answer everything. Make sure you send me a comment down below or just a direct message on Instagram at DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.